Charles, I've been on a whirlwind road trip throughout the nation, and we had a little bit of my fault, of course, but a little bit of a time zone problem tonight, so we're starting a little bit late, but better late than never. How are you there in the residential library? Looking good.
Thanks so much. No, I'm doing well. I have become addicted, in quotes, to using Gemini, the AI search engine, or whatever you want to call it, of Google. And it's really remarkably good in its own right, and so much better than Grok at the moment. I'm sure they're going to be vying back and forth. But the other thing I'm doing, which I'm sure everyone will be delighted to learn about, is this afternoon, I'm going to be using AI to improve my tennis game. Believe it or not, there's a complex here in Penang where there's a half a court rigged up with cameras and whatever, and the balls are fed to you. You hit the balls. They tell you how fast the return would go, where it would land, and give you video of your swing, which is a far better approach than going to a wall and hitting a ball against a wall, because that really actually doesn't help that much. So that's very far off topic from the subject of the dirty diaper wearing idiot from Minnesota, Ilhan Omar, and what's going on as many Somalis fleece, not simply Minnesota, but there are reports now out of Ohio that the Somali community is doing the same thing there. And I guess, where there are these type of Somalis, there's going to be fraud everywhere. And just to be clear to the audience and to potential critics, I suspect that Erica Kirk is also a Somali, because she's engaged, I think, in the same sort of fraud, using, pretending that she has a valid right to step into Charlie's shoes just because she happened to be married to him for a little bit. That is not the way public charities are supposed to operate.
Yeah.
So, starting first with Somali, I noticed that Netanyahu, Israel, had signed an Abraham Accord with an entity designated as being Somaliland. Now, in 1977, I spent almost half the year living in Kenya, and before and after that, I was studying the history while at Yale of East Africa. So I'm aware that the modern contours of the nation, where Mogadishu is the capital, as is the case in Europe and frankly in America and elsewhere, as you go back in time through history, various clans and tribes and even nation states have laid claim to territory in and around modern Somalia, which is headquartered, I believe, in Mogadishu, a place that we didn't do very well in when Bill Clinton was president, I believe. So the issue, apparently the morons who continue to think that the UN is relevant are outraged that Israel would enter this accord with a nation state that is only recognized by a very limited number of countries around the world, that being Somaliland. And I'm not an expert on international law. I would even pose the question, does international law even matter anymore? But the idea that Israel would enter into a peace deal with this portion of Somalia, when Somalia has been out of control for decades, if not centuries, a haven for pirates and murderers and butchers, and indeed Ilhan Omar. I looked into this. I thought that he was a bad guy. There was a brutal dictator in Somalia called Siad Barre, Barre. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, forgive me. And Ilhan's father was a colonel in that army. And while there are not, I don't think, specific claims pertaining to his perpetrating atrocities, monstrous atrocities were perpetrated by the Barre regime against pockets of resistance throughout that, whatever the borders of that country once were. And this is a country like Kenya, excuse me, that has nomadic tribes or nomadic ethnic groups wandering around the country at different times of the year. Different tribes and clans and sects and others have historical claims to the territory. So it's a tremendous mess into which Netanyahu has now stepped without consulting the international community at large and the UN. And so, in addition to the drama inside the country, the US, there is drama pertaining to Somalia outside the United States.
Unbelievable, Charles. I'm sure you saw that report. Nick Shirley was going around to some of these supposed daycare centers. Elon Musk has been blowing it up on X. And actually, I saw Ted Cruz reposted it. J.D. Vance reposted it. It's gotten 48 hours it's been out now. So seems like if something's going to happen, this would provoke it. Pretty good report by Nick Shirley. Oh, did you freeze, Charles? I hope we have good internet here. You got me?
No, I got you.
Okay.
People need to remember that Hillary Clinton is a champion ass clown at taking advantage of vulnerable people. Her first book was "It Takes a Village Idiot to Raise a Child." Oh, I mean, I'm sorry, I put the idiot in. Takes a village to raise a child. All about the obligations that communities have beyond the familial obligation to assist in raising children. And when you take that approach, when parents delegate or abandon responsibilities for raising their own children, you end up with this kind of bullshit where fraudsters, I mean, it's very easy to slap a picture, particularly of a troubled child, onto a fundraising appeal and raise all kinds of money. So what these people, I think, have been doing, Hillary Clinton included, and Chelsea and Bill and others, and Barack Obama and the Bushes, making an argument when you are a former world leader or current world leader or an aspiring world leader that you ought to take donations and you're responsible enough to steward those donations and apply them for the benefit of vulnerable children, vulnerable communities, and you steal that money, you should be, you should be permanently barred from holding a position of any kind of trust. You should serve a long prison sentence. You should lose all of your assets. There has to be a mark. You can't be allowing these Somali ass clowns and other ass clowns like Erica Kirk and Hillary Clinton and others to be going to these celebrity gatherings and slathering one another with praise for their good works, when in fact what they're doing is stealing tens of millions, or if not more, dollars. And in the case of if they're stealing government grants, they're stealing money that we don't even have. We're borrowing that money as a nation.
Yeah. No, it's
so
crazy.
Good on Nick Shirley, if that's his name, for just as a young guy, all he did was just go to the addresses that are listed on some of these supposed do-gooder organizations to discover, in many cases, they don't have anything going on. And other reports, I think I sent you one or more, people have been looking at these addresses and saying, well, how many organizations claim to be operating from these addresses? And they're discovering that many, many, many are doing this. How did this happen? What the hell does Mike Waltz think he's doing in Minnesota as governor?
Tim Waltz,
Mike Waltz, whatever
the hell his name is exactly. Well, Timmy. It's a good question, Charles. I mean, do we think that we're finally going to see some prosecutions on this? I mean, we ask this question all the time, but yet it seems like nothing ever really happens.
Well, that we should even have to ask a question like this. I mean, it'd be one thing if we were sitting there as a nation of 335 million people, if that's the number, spending, let's call it $1 trillion a year on government. We're spending closer to 10 trillion. And we have to seriously sit here in the face of what we see and the decade of work you and I have done together and wonder whether our own government is going to do anything to police this kind of fraud. That we would even have to think that. Tells you how fucked up the system is. And enough of these congratulation parties when suspects are apprehended in horrible crimes and you get 25 idiots standing in front of a microphone congratulating one another for the excellent work they did, never getting to the true bottom of the crime. Why is James Comey a free man today? I mean, that guy, for the work that we've done, was inside the mechanism that was supposed to be policing crime and bringing people to justice for more than a decade. He led the quote investigation into the Clinton Foundation in 2001 through 4, in that time period roughly, and managed to miss a monumental fraud that has been compounding ever since. He was also in charge of the FBI when there's new revelations out of Chuck Grassley that the FBI field agents had monitored conversations in which Hillary Clinton was shaking foreign donors down for contributions that couldn't be made to her campaign. So people were suggesting they be routed to the Clinton Foundation. The FBI had this information in 2016, reported it, field officers report to HQ. HQ says, we're not going to investigate that. We want to work for this bitch when she wins the presidency. I mean, this is just outrageous stuff. And people, examples need to be made of the people who did this so that the rising generation says, I don't want to be James Comey. I don't want to do what he did. I want to fly high and build Lego sets and threaten the president on X and joke about it and raise a whole bunch of hostile women to Donald Trump, and then think that I got away with it, only to spend the rest of my life running from Bubba when I'm not breaking rocks apart in a high security prison somewhere. I mean, real examples need to be set.
I hope they'll do it, Charles, but it's hard to have confidence. I know I talk about my legal cases a lot, not because of me, but because it's been my first real hard lesson in federal court. And I have to say, my cases are completely unimportant compared to all the stuff that you're talking about, but it's like a microcosm for what's going on. No matter how right I am, the judges don't say you're wrong for this or that reason. They just ignore the things that I say that are clearly correct according to the law and go to some other tricky thing to, wipe out my case. I think that James Comey and people like him know that this is just the way they do it, and it's virtually impossible for them to get in trouble.
Well, I mean, the way I distinguish between two sets of issues, on, for example, the Clinton Foundation, anytime you get close to bringing people to justice, they trot out Andy McCarthy, a former U.S. Attorney Office guy in the Southern District, and he patiently explains to you all the process reasons why nothing's going to happen. I am not interested in perpetuating a process where vulnerable people don't see the money that we borrow to send to them, because instead the people who make the decisions about judicial prosecution and non-prosecution in this process chain are connected to the very charities, and I'm not saying McCarthy is, but there are others inside the system who are, flagrantly abusing what are supposed to be charities that are not supposed to be involved in profit-making activities or partisan political activities. I mean, here you have a guy who I think in history will be seen as a complete buffoon and fraud, and that is Barack Obama. Here you have a windowless, disgusting building rising to 265 feet. That's a tall building that's going to house no physical records of this guy's presidency. And we haven't been able to study his presidency because we haven't been able to have access to the records, even though it is now, next year, it'll be 10 years close to 10 years that he left. You have the Clinton precedent. He can have a penthouse apartment atop some trailer, a double stacked trailer wide, or whatever you call it, double trailer thing, overlooking the river there in Arkansas. His wife is now, they bought another adjacent charity complex that they're going to use to house Hillary's Secretary of State records. There's no provision that I know of that says that secretaries of state get their own Secretary of State library. There's no such legislation. So why she would get to do that is beyond me. The Bush family has 2 separate presidential libraries. And as a guess, Donald Trump will die, and 700 years later, there'll be a Trump library. I mean, the swamp is going to do everything they can to slow down any kind of library for Trump. So, I mean, I've been patient on this, and I'm not actually playing for prosecutions. I'm playing to lay out what actually truly happened. And at some point, decent people in the future are going to say, a pox on the Clintons, a pox on the Obamas, a pox on all the people who would abuse these charities. And someday justice will be served.
I hope that's true. It's going to be served cold because it's taking forever. The service in this justice sucks, Charles. Let's go.
some cold food is good.
Yeah, not this. But, there was that, going back to the Turning Point USA, because it's not just the Somalia like it hot. It's, as we said, we're not biased towards just Democrat grifting. You've been pointing out lots of issues with the Turning Point USA frauds and stuff like that. That Wolves and Finance guy, Zach, has a new video out today. He's zeroing in on the P.O. box in that UPS store at the shopping mall where, a couple $1,000,000 have gone there. I don't know why the videos that you've done, I mean, his videos come out, he's getting, 400,000 views in 2 days. You have gone right to the heart of the matter there. And I don't know, maybe that's part of it, is that these crimes are too complicated for the average person to understand or care about. I think that's why Nick Shirley, that was so impactful, because he went right there and you see the Children's Learning Center misspelled, and it's just obvious to everybody. The stuff that you're talking about, it's pretty complicated. Maybe, I don't know, maybe people aren't grasping it.
Well, it's also the time of year where you get a lot of charity appeals. Please, before the end of the year, give us your money. And I remember being a young banker on Wall Street where we were encouraged to make donations. And I remember wanting to get them in by the end of the year and sitting down with my assistant and writing, 100 checks, without really checking anything. Just, here's a list of charities. Oh, this one sounds okay. All right, this one's good. My parents gave to this one. And that's the way, and that was the wrong way to do it, first of all. I should have found one really spectacular charity and supported that one with outsized money. But people are not careful enough, and the fraudsters understand it. And now you have the ability with the internets that Al Gore invented, you have the ability to do this on a massive scale all around the world. You can just on the internet, you can set up a site. You can, do it behind a fictitious name or company or whatever. And many of these internet providers are not careful enough. And next thing you know, think of the number of GoFundMe appeals that were total bullshit. This is an area that has to be policed. And you pointed out, and I was reading about it this morning, actually, the precious metal markets are on a tear under a theory that fiat currencies like the dollar are not going to hold up very well in 2026. So this isn't a moment when we should be casual about fraud. I mean, we need to get ready in the United States to be defending the U.S. dollar against speculators, which means you've got to have access to something that's valuable. And you can't be burning the kind of money that we're burning, allowing Ilhan Omar and Erica Kirk and the Schlapper and Obama, Clinton, Bush, and all these people to raise money for what sounds like reasonable causes, and then allow the people who are operating these supposed charities to steal that money.
Interestingly enough, Charles, Snopes says still no evidence Ilhan Omar's father committed war crimes while serving in the Somali military. I mean, that's like
Snopes,
when
that's
Clay
reliable.
Aikens had his press conference to announce that he wasn't gay. The fact that they're like, oh, there's no evidence. Like, where are you going to get evidence from a war in Somalia? Isn't it very likely destroyed? And I mean, I don't know. Snopes is so stupid.
Ask the same question of Siad Barre, Siadbarre. Is he accused of war crimes? He was the leader of the country, the dictator, and unlikely as the dictator himself to be shooting people or doing the things that the Barre regime stands accused of doing. And the people most likely to have done that would have been, say, Ilhan Omar's father, who was in the military. I think he was a colonel. Well, I read.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure he did. I have no doubt. I mean, I don't know. I don't see Snopes is not a very good
Well,
thing to
don't
be.
use Snopes.
No,
You use Gemini. You use something like that. But no, Snopes is ridiculous.
let's ask Gemini. It'll be, it's also a little bit woke sometimes. We'll have to see.
And also while you're doing it, I would encourage people, or I would note that even Gemini says, and that Gemini is correct, that you don't just accept their answer. You've got to, if you think it's wrong, push back, and because it does make mistakes, and you get your best answers when you know something about the subject matter and can push back, as I do in the things that I've been asking about.
Here's the
What?
colonel in the Somali.
What was that?
It's sometimes things are making sound. When I'm on the road, I have a different system for working the sound. So Gemini's answer was blasting sound that was coming onto our broadcast. So anyway, let's not ask Gemini. We'll have to research that on another day. I think there's very little doubt that there's fraud going on there in Minnesota. Whatever it is her father did when he was in Somalia, that's a separate issue. We also just haven't even had a proper investigation into her alleged immigration fraud. So there's a number of things that need to be investigated with Ilhan Omar. Has Trump commented on any of this reporting from Nick Shirley?
I don't know. I would guess he will. I mean, it's late Sunday your time, so as a guess, there will be a comment in the morning.
Fox has a story here where they're saying Tim Waltz pushes back on Minnesota fraud allegations following viral daycare video. Independent journalist Nick Shirley documented visits to facilities that allegedly received millions in state funding. And the Minnesota look, they got Nick Shirley right there on Fox. He's blowing up. This is a career-making story for him, so congratulations to him. Minnesota Governor Tim Waltz is pushing back against fraud allegations after a viral video showed visits to multiple child care centers in the state, including one that allegedly received millions of dollars in state funding despite appearing largely inactive. The other thing is, it wasn't, see, the people who are pushing back here against Nick Shirley, or at least that I've seen, have said, oh, it's Christmas or it's Sunday or whatever. But the guy, there was a gentleman who Nick Shirley kind of met with when he was there, who clearly was, like a Bob Bishop type of guy who just lived in the area and had been investigating this for months or years. He said, the guy who's working with Nick Shirley said that he had been there dozens or even hundreds of times and never had seen any children there. So it's interesting how people are pushing back.
Well, just to remind you of the time I was supposed to meet with a top person at the Small Business Administration in Washington, D.C. And I go into the office of the Small Business Administration, and that person's picture is on the wall. And I say to the guard, I'm here to meet with so-and-so. Who's that? The guard says. Well, that's the person who's on the wall right behind you. I don't know her. You go through like 10 minutes negotiating to get in to see the person. I get off on the floor, and there are all these morons with the government badges on a string tie around their necks, with big cups of coffee and gigantic pastries, walking around looking like zombies. I go up to one of them, and I say, I'm here to meet with so and so. Who's that? Well, she runs your department. You ever heard of her? Nope. Well, where do you think she might be based? On this floor. I don't know. Then I meet with her, and she's a complete moron. I mean, so that's in a supposedly well-run part of the government. I mean, you can imagine what it's like in Minnesota in a state government office.
Yeah.
In the winter. Maybe the true answer that we're going to get from Tim Waltz is that actually, all these people in the charity are working from home.
Oh, yeah, to educate these children. That story reminds me of the time they were like, hey, you got ID, Nick Brady?
Yeah, exactly. It's very unprofessional.
Well, Charles, we're
compared
going to
to
make our way over to the First Amendment Forum. We'll dig into more of this story and try and figure out what it is that Tim Waltz was talking about. But people are going to be able to join us. If you've been watching and enjoying this road trip, please become a sponsor on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Also on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. And of course, people who follow me on X at JG_CSTT. You can subscribe there. Gas, hotels, all that. Costing tons of dough. If you enjoy the show, please become a sponsor. We'll be right back.